Whether you're a fan of sports or not, you're most likely somewhat aware that the number one female tennis player in the world, Australian Ash Barty, recently retired from the sport at the relatively young age of 25. Now, of course, opinion would be split on this scenario, but you are only likely to hear one opinion or one perspective on the situation as the prevailing viewpoint, a predictably favourable one. Naturally, however, some were more outspoken in their support than others. Take a look at the headline of this article. It should prove as no surprise that a liberal media outlet such as The Guardian is effectively advocating that the world, and thus the West as the dominant civilization, reject the cultural soul image of its organic imperative. What does this mean? Well, the journalist is effectively praising a member of the Faustian civilization for not being Faustian, for not being a physical representation of the culture's metaphysical spirit. Now, of course, modern Western media would do this, as there is no strong concept of metaphysics present in the modern world, let alone Western media. Yet the discussion of such a topic is interesting to me, especially when looking at it from a philosophical perspective. The athlete is obviously worthy of great respect for her achievements, but the most interesting point of discussion, in my opinion, comes about when we critique her decision to retire at a young age from a philosophical perspective and use her decision as evidence of a loss of cultural motivation. Historically speaking, a true example of acting in accordance with the Faustian spirit would be the ongoing pursuit of glory until it literally cannot be pursued anymore. All of history's greatest conquerors didn't retire early. They pushed until they were literally broken and couldn't continue or were defeated. Perhaps the very fact that Barty freely chose to retire rather early in her career indicates that through no fault of her own, she doesn't possess a uniquely strong expression of the conquering Faustian spirit. The flames of her passion have now faded. She is, after all, still a product of the modern world, and once again, the fact that her decision has been largely praised indicates that the vast majority of individuals within the masses don't possess the spirit of endless conquest or boundless ambition either, especially in a country such as Australia, whose people have always been commonly agreed upon as having a laid-back disposition, which doesn't particularly lend itself to being super competitive at all costs. Thus, Barty's reputation and legacy will be significant within the sport of tennis, but she has possibly condemned herself to being more of a footnote than perhaps she ought to have been, simply because she didn't completely exhaust her potential in tennis, given her exceptional talent. She could have won more trophies than she did, but she freely chose not to, and thus does not possess the will to win any more than she feels she needs to. Nowadays, there are only fleeting individual examples of an insatiable will to conquer, and sport acts as a simplistic yet clear metaphorical expression of that will. The big three of men's tennis, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic, clearly each possess an insatiable will to win, as they have wrestled with history and sculpted a legendary rivalry for many years now, whilst each being very explicit about their desire to reach the pinnacle and be universally considered the greatest male players of all time. Their shared desire has even imparted upon them the status of transcending their sport, although whether or not this ought to be considered a good thing is up for debate, as such an outcome clearly demonstrates a cult of celebrity and the sin of idolatry. Other sporting examples of the will to conquer at all costs can be found in the much storied rivalry of footballers Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. as well as in the personality, character, or philosophical outlook of a number of golden era bodybuilders, most particularly Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mike Mensa, and Tom Platz. Schwarzenegger for his exceptional achievements and success, not only in his initial pursuit of bodybuilding, but also the film and entertainment industry, and even the political realm, whilst Mensa expressed the will through his cultivation of an exceptional physique as well as an exceptional mind. Mensa was a staunch individualist and had significant knowledge of psychology and philosophy. Such was his interest in the mind. Mensa's outlook was initially shaped by reading the Greeks, as evidenced by a clear propensity for Aristotelian virtue or the pursuit of the golden mean, as well as a deep fascination with the life and works of German Friedrich Nietzsche, paying particular attention to the concept of the Übermensch. Yet when searching for examples of raw intensity and passion in weight training and exercise, it must be said that one need look no further than Tom Platz. There is nothing really like his approach in the modern day equivalent. His love and respect for his pursuit was deep and true, and his relationship with the gym has always appeared to be somewhat poetic. The enthusiasm he conveys when discussing physical training and life in general is invigorating. From a metaphorical and philosophical sense, Platz has ample thumos, or fire in the belly. He embodies the Faustian spirit and is more in tune with the Nietzschean will to power than most others. Whether it's deliberate or not, that is just the man he is. He is, or was, as driven as they come. He fully embraced the organic imperative of pushing for the infinite and seeking to chase the unexplored, an endless pursuit of self-improvement and fulfillment. To some people, his mannerisms and words are considered too intense, but the nature and feeling of his words and thoughts is only lost on those who seemingly lack a sense of the metaphysical. Once you are aware of such a feeling, such a spirit, then it becomes easy to notice it all around you, and you begin to experience life on a deeper level of thought and start to view life as art. Furthermore, it could be argued that retiring at the peak of your powers, going out on a high, or going out on top is inherently anti-Faustian, the traditionally noble thing to do, or the thing most valued by the culture traditionally, would be to bravely fight on, or play on, and leave the arena totally battered and bruised. So as man's fall from grace is inevitable, let it happen, and let the world see the hero experience it in the arena. Here is a second article from a few years ago, also touting an excessively liberal, near enough is good enough mentality that now permeates the culture. The journalist is clearly frustrated at your attempts to go to the gym, to try to objectively improve your appearance, strength, functionality, and flexibility, and is frustrated by the pride you have in these achievements. It makes her realize that perhaps she is not your equal in at least one area of life. Rather than feel encouraged and motivated to change herself to get to a higher level, or at least the highest level she can muster, whilst at least giving you credit for changing yourself, she would clearly rather engage in the most blatant tall poppy syndrome imaginable, in the hope that you stop improving, stop feeling proud of it, and return to the herd, where the prevailing mentality is that everyone is perfect just the way they are, which actually just lends itself to eventual soul-crushing nihilism and is a critique of the reality that no person is actually perfect or even necessarily praiseworthy unless they do something deserving of respect, which alludes to the requirement of sustained effort, consistency, and discipline in order to change and seek out a higher level of being. The rising tide lifts all boats. One should aim as high as possible and promote that to others, whilst always remembering that nothing worth having comes easy. Lastly, just to drive the point home further, let us discuss the Baltic German strongman, professional wrestler, and strength sports pioneer, George Hackenschmidt. Credited as the inventor of the modern bench press, which was originally a floor press, and also the barbell hack squat, Hackenschmidt was the author of the well-known book The Way to Live, published in 1908, which is still remarkably relevant. Hackenschmidt was seemingly also aware of the current culture of weakness and lethargy, recognizing it even within his own era, as he attempted to provide people with an effective antidote taken from his own knowledge, experience, and expertise. A significant extract taken from his book is as follows, and these will be the closing remarks. It is a well-known fact that the majority of men today are relatively weak, whereas the struggle for existence demands now more than at any previous epoch that we should all be strong. The reader may think that physical strength is not a necessity, but I will try to prove to him that man cannot derive real enjoyment from life unless he possesses a powerful and healthy constitution.